Monday morning, I reached out to the Trump White House. As you can well imagine, we have lots of friends, as you well know, in the Trump White House. And I said, hey, what's the story here? Is there actually any truth to this at all? I put up the tweet on it early this morning. And what I was told is this is fake news. The White House has not extended an offer to the Philadelphia Eagles yet. It is still very soon after the championship was garnered. And usually those championship visits don't happen until the summer. And the Eagles have given no indication at all, as they have not received an invite about whether they will be coming or not.
So Outkicks Clay Travis there giving us the update or the initial news report, because I guess everything else was kind of rumor, that the Eagles are very open to going to the White House because they're world champions, and that's what they should do. Politics is obviously in everything right now, and sometimes people think if you're in sports, maybe you don't talk about those things. That got politicized, I think, before maybe anybody even got asked, as he said, invited to the White House. And we're excited to bring our next guest on the show. Jonathan Lucroy is a former Major League Baseball catcher, known from the Brewers, of course, here in St. Louis. He's also a professional hitting and catching consultant. Go to jonathanlucroy.com to learn more. Jonathan, it is a pleasure to have you on the show here. Thanks for being with us today.
Hi, Annie. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet. I want to give you the opportunity to talk about, for an athlete that gets the opportunity to go to the White House, there's always a little bit of buzz and hubbub around that. Donald Trump is more charged, it seems to me, than any other political figure, at least in my 40 years of life. When you hear stories like this about some teams saying they don't want to go or they do want to go based on the presidency, what are your thoughts about that as a professional athlete?
I think that the opportunity to go to the White House is a huge privilege. And I myself have been twice. Both times Obama was president. I went to Obama's State of Union address in 2015. To me, it's not about the man, but about the respect for the office and who the people elect there. And I think for anybody to be invited is a privilege and an honor. And I would have loved to go as a world champion. To go experience that and celebrate that win and celebrate that championship, at the highest nation in the land. And I think whoever's in the White House is irrelevant. And I think that's an excuse personally. So I think as athletes, like, we should be proud to take part in such things if we're invited.
Yeah, I think that's a really smart, common sense way to approach it, and that's kind of what attracted me to what you have been posting on X at JLucroy20 for folks who want to follow Jonathan. You have a pretty. This is the weird thing, that normal thoughts on politics seem to be kind of outside of the norm, but it's starting to become a little more common to see people who have varied opinions on politics, but now are more willing to just weigh in on things when it matters to them in this second term of Donald Trump. What's your thoughts on his victory, but also his ability to get things done and your willingness to talk about it?
I try to look at everything from, an athlete perspective. And again, my world is baseball, right? And I'm not a political scientist. I don't claim to be. I don't claim to know everything. But what I do know is that for me, if I'm trying to be the best catcher in the world, right, I'm going to go and get advice from somebody who was the best catcher in the world, who's done it at a high level, right? A guy like, again, I don't want to make a big deal out of it, like a guy like Yadier Molina, right? And I love Yadi. I respect Yadi to death. I talked about Yadi a lot online on Twitter and all that. But my point is that whenever I don't like politicians per se, and I don't think Donald Trump's a politician. I think he's a businessman.
Mm-hmm.
And Elon Musk, businessman, he's surrounding himself with business people. And I believe that we have to trust him. And I know a lot of people don't, because they're being fed this counter narrative that he's racist and a fascist dictator and all this crazy stuff. And I'm like, the guy was actually shot at, right? And they tried to kill him. And he's still up there telling us to fight and get after it. And to me, I like that Donald Trump is who he is. He's unapologetically who he is. And I've never met him, but I know people that know him and that have met him that are working with him now on a lot of things. And for me, like, let's go back to the baseball perspective. I always like having players on my team that were a little edgy.
Yeah.
Not crazy, but like a little edgy. that you couldn't bully around, you couldn't push around because those guys win, and you need guys like that on your team to win, and I think as Americans we should be trying to win. And unfortunately, there's a portion of this country and the media in general that they act like they don't want us to win. With all the Doge stuff, they act like it's okay that we're wasting all this money and sending it to terrorist groups and all these other things and all these other really weird, purposes and
Yeah.
all this weird stuff. Like it just doesn't make sense to me from a logical perspective. I try to look at everything logically and stay out of my emotions on it. Um, Talking about athletes, though, you know, we're always told, don't bring politics into the game, keep it separate, believe what you want to believe, vote how you want to vote, but don't talk about it, don't represent it. But my problem is, and this is my personal experience, and I posted this many times on Twitter or on X, um, that they politicize us. We're
Yeah.
politicized. We're politicized. Like we're told to wear rainbow jerseys and celebrate drag queen nights and take pride in all this weird stuff. Or excuse me, take part in all this weird stuff. Kneel for the anthem. That was a big one that really chapped me.
Yeah.
We were told to kneel for the anthem, and I told them no, I'm not doing that. Like I refuse to do that. It's just not respectful to me. That's not solving a purpose. Matter of fact, you're alienating and dividing people more because you're pushing this.
Yeah.
And I think athletes should be more bold. And my hope is that and I'm not saying I'm some superstar big name person, but I will tell you this. I'm not going to mention names, but I've had a lot of people, baseball players, big time players that people know about that are still playing, that have reached out telling me that they appreciate what I'm doing and that they are thankful that there's someone being bold. And I look and I tell them, I text them back or I call them back and I'm like, bro, you could do it too. Like
Yes.
it's okay. It's okay. Why is it not okay to talk about how you believe and what you represent? And not even from a political perspective, like take politics out, like
Human. Yes.
culturally, culturally, like it's okay to love my wife. It's okay to love children. It's okay, to have children. It's okay to be married for a long time. It's okay, to stand up and be proud to be an American. It's okay to do that. Like it's nothing. What's wrong with that? Why? And so, but they're told that they can't do that. And I understand a little bit because I was that guy where I didn't want to bring it up during my playing days because they would just cut you or release you, or they'd come in and they would tell the media, don't interview this person,
Mm-hmm.
don't interview this guy because he's going to talk about his politics or whatever. And I think there's a problem with that. And I think that we're allowed to be, we're not allowed to to talk about what we culturally believe in, family values based stuff. But yeah, they politicize us in the field and tell us to do all these crazy, take part and celebrate all this crazy stuff, all this all this weird sex stuff and
Yeah.
everything. And it's weird. And it just doesn't make sense to me from a logical perspective.
Yeah, I think that that's one of the reasons why I'm so grateful that you're on with us here in St. Louis, because what you're saying, you're getting people reaching out to you saying like, high five, man. Thanks for saying that stuff. You're speaking for more people than you know. And to your point, like, okay, now your turn. Tag, you're it. Speak up. And for your voice to be out there and talking about it, you kind of just, I don't know if you, it's not an insult. You kind of disqualified your political opinion at the beginning by saying, you're a baseball player, you're not a political science major or whatever. I actually care more about what you think because
Yeah,
you have a lived experience. You're talking about players that you have worked with, been on teams with, played against, that you respect. These people are husbands, they're fathers, and they're Christians. They're all these things
yep,
that I would assume on the resume of life come before baseball player. And
absolutely.
you're being pushed by an industry, I don't know if it's going to happen as much. It seems like more people are kind of moving away from the woke virtue signaling in corporations because it doesn't seem to be as trendy at this point. But when you're talking about Major League Baseball telling you guys to kneel, how do you handle that as a team when something like
So,
that comes down?
so I don't want to, I'd love to call everybody out, believe me, but I'm not here to trash people.
Mm-hmm.
I think that from what I've seen, and you've seen it in industry as well, is that a lot of businesses and industries and sports leagues, they sway with the political climate. right? And
Yeah.
so, you got these woke people in office, and so now all of a sudden they got to go. These organizations and these teams and leagues and stuff, they got to go woke, or they'll be punished in some way by the government, or I don't know, but it's just what I've heard. And I think that, you know, sports number one should be celebrating the best of us, right? It should be celebrating. And
Excellence.
by the way,
Yeah.
let's call it what it is. Professional sports is a pure meritocracy. Okay. So if I suck and I don't play good, I'm going to lose my job. Okay. It's no DEI. You can't have DEI and on professional sports teams, because you want a guy up to the plate that's good at hitting, not a guy up to the plate because he's of a certain skin tone or or a certain nationality, right?
Yeah.
A great example of this is I played with multiple guy. I played with guys from all over the world, but I played with guys from Cuba and Venezuela. Now let me ask you a question: how do you think they believe? Right? The Cuban guys came over here on boats fighting sharks. It's a true story. My Venezuelan buddy, I'll never forget. We were in the food room, in the cafeteria getting something to eat, and he looks at me. He goes, "Lucroy, Lucroy." I can't do the accent, so I'm not even going to try. But he goes, "Lucroy, why do?" And this was during the Antifa and BLM riots. And he said, "Lucroy, why do people hate America like this? What's wrong with these people? Well, why, they have no idea.
Are you
Like,
like, how
why do
much
they hate
time do you
America?"
have? Sit
Yeah,
down,
like
let's have
why
a talk.
why is this? And I said, bro, I said, I don't know. I said, I think people just they're just not happy people for whatever reason. They're just miserable, and they want to make everybody miserable around them because they're so traumatized from something that happened in their childhood or something. I don't know. They've been brainwashed. He goes, Poppy, I have family members in Venezuela that are eating cats and dogs, and I don't understand why these people act like this. That's what he told me. And it's just 90%. I can't speak for any other leagues, but 90% of Major League Baseball players are conservative. They're not. We talk about it amongst each other. We had multiple conversations about this every year I played with different groups of guys, and 90% of them are conservative. Why? Because baseball in general is a meritocratic sport, and
Yes.
most of us come from lower middle class families, and we got to work our way up, overcoming failure and overcoming adversity to become the best in the world at what we do. And why don't we apply that to our government? Why is our politicians, they get elected and they think they can do whatever they want? Like, earn it. We have to earn this.
Mm-hmm.
And it it is not given, it's earned. And that's why I love what this Doge stuff's all about, man, because he's exposing all this stuff. And
Yes.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. I think we got to earn this, man, because we are capable of greatness and we have to earn it to get there.
We're speaking with Jonathan Lucroy. He's a Major League Baseball player here in St. Louis. Of course, we know him from the Brewers. We had Wilson Contreras. I don't know if it was in the World Baseball Classic. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. I think Venezuela was having their election, and he hit a home run. And, fans of Contreras here, of course, and our Contreras, I should say. And he hits this home run, and I remember seeing him in the dugout, and he was like weeping after that happened. And, afterwards, the local press was like, "Hey, man, what was going on there?" Because you hit this big home run, like that's what you do. You're a pro ball player, you hit home runs, hooray! But he was so emotional about it, and he commented about Venezuela, I think, an election that was about to happen that evening or something, and I think he was just comparing at that moment the contrast between this home run that he's hitting, for the St. Louis Cardinals, or maybe it was during the World Baseball Classic. I can't remember, and he was just overwhelmed, I think, with that contrast of what the people where he comes from are dealing with. And these are all things that are bigger than baseball, but yet these baseball moments bring out, in many cases, what is best about the United States of America. And I just think baseball, it seems to be one of the pure places that is left. And going back to what you were saying about, how baseball or any pro sport can try to shove these things in your experience, do you feel like when some of the woke stuff tries to seep in, hey, you guys, you're going to kneel. Hey, you guys, you're going to wear this jersey. Hey, we're going to celebrate this tonight, and everybody's going to participate. My assessment of that has always been that the money, the top of the business, they stick their finger in the wind, and they think that the money is chasing after the woke things. It's not even really, to me, a true virtuistic type of movement that is engaged in with a lot of these big high dollar businesses and corporations, when it becomes less trendy, they're out. It's not like the virtue can be shown the most when it's unpopular, which is really, Jonathan, what I'm seeing from you and your willingness to speak out.
Well, Annie, I think too, on that same note, if teams would celebrate America every single day, and push the instead of pushing the woke stuff, if they would actually focus on the family values part and the celebration of America part, and being proud and being gracious and being humble with actually being in this position where we're able to go out and yeah, make a lot of money, but also to play at the highest level in the world of what we do, being proud of that and celebrating that every day on the field, they'd actually make more money. I mean, look what's happened to the NBA. They would make more money. Why? Because the majority of sports fans, they're just middle class people that just want to go and be distracted from the grind of their everyday life. They don't want to show up and they don't want to see all this weird, virtue signaling stuff going on the field. They just want to bring their 6-year-old kid
Yeah.
to a game and not see drag queens walking around. Like that's a true story. Like that's a true, like that happened on the team I was on. And that we had, how many we seriously had maybe 1,000 fans that day. Cause I'm going, this isn't even smart business wise. Cause
Right.
you're alienating the majority of your fan base by pushing this stuff, and no one cares. Like if you're gay, who cares? Like no one cares. Like go live your life and be an adult, do whatever you want behind closed doors, but don't come out and push this stuff on everybody else. you know you're trying to use this platform to push whatever narrative or whatever you're trying to do. Just go out and let us play. And if we don't want to kneel for the anthem, don't demonize us for that.
Mm.
And the team that told me to kneel for the anthem, it happened, and it came down, and the ownership group came down and said, we're encouraging you for the anthem. And I looked at him and I go, there's no way on God's green earth I will ever kneel for the anthem. If you want to release me and fire me right now, I'll go home. Like I don't care. Like I have friends at home. I have friends of mine that are military veterans. I've done a lot of military charity work in my career. I will never do that ever. I don't care if you can put a gun to my head. I won't do it. I kneel for Jesus Christ, and that's it. That's the only person I kneel for. And I'm unapologetically, like I'm unapologetic about it. I will never apologize for it. But I actually called a buddy of mine who's on the other team, and I'm like, "Hey, bro," real good friend of mine. I say, "Hey, bro," I said, "This is what happened. I'm going to tell you, I'm not doing it." He goes, "Dude, our ownership group came down and told us the same exact thing." And I said, "I'm not kneeling." He goes, "I'm not either." I said, "Good. Might just be me and you, bro, but I ain't doing it." And he didn't either. No, and it turned out it actually was great. There's only like 5 or 6 guys that did on both teams total. And so that's why I say, like, you cannot, you have a bunch of alpha male type personalities and that are coming out on the field to compete and to beat each other. And you're telling us to come out here and to get in a state of submission to something that isn't even going to work. Like that isn't even, like, if you have a cause you believe in, fine, go do whatever you think is right for you. Like I'm a free speech guy, man. Like do Constitution, like Bill of Rights, do your thing, do whatever you want to do. I'm not forcing anybody to believe what I want to believe.
Right.
I just think that goes both ways. That goes both ways, and you're not going to force us to do the same thing that you feel like we should do, and I believe how you want to believe. And again, my hope is that I can inspire guys to be more bold, to speak out, and to be more courageous, because I think the courageous part is what we need. We need people to be courageous, and there are a lot of people are outside of the political space, like
Mm-hmm.
and culture. Harrison Butker, what he did. Um, be courageous and just speak what you believe in. And if you disagree with me, that's okay. You don't have to
Right.
agree with me. Like that's fine. Disagree with me. Like I don't want I don't expect everybody to agree with me, but I know the majority of them do. They just don't want to talk about it, and they don't want to be vocal about it because of the repercussions of what might happen to them.
Mm.
And it's cancel culture still. And to me, if we live in a country that is that we have the kind of Bill of Rights we do, we have the Constitution that we do, and in Britain, they're arresting people for posts online. I mean, that is insane. It's insane.
It's crazy.
And here, You saw what happened with X, and until Elon bought him. Thank God, Elon bought X. But before that, if I would have spoken out before Elon bought X, I would have been deplatformed. And here it's you're not you're taking away people's ability to have free speech, and
You know,
and they go ahead.
I was just going to say the thing about it is though, and especially with that story about you saying there's no way I'm going to kneel. It's just not happening. And
Yeah.
it's clear to me based on that story that there had to be people in that room. I don't know what your seniority was when were you a rookie or were you like a senior guy in the locker room at that time? But there had to be people in there that was like, "Oh my God, I'm glad he said that." And it took
Yeah.
one person to stand up and say, "Absolutely not." Then
Yeah, now you're right, and we talked about it as a team, and at the time, I had a lot of service time in big league, so I was one of the veteran guys, and but I was new to the team. Not that kept me from speaking out. I just don't care what people think about me, to be honest with you, anymore. I used to, not anymore, but I basically said, look, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, and you guys do whatever you want to do, but I'm going to do this, and whether that I inspired him or not, I don't know, but knowing what I know about baseball players in general, you know, a lot of guys think the same way I do. They just
Mhm.
don't want to talk about it, be vocal about it because they're fearful of the attention. By me doing so, I want you to understand. And again, I'm not virtue signaling here. Okay. I'm just being honest. Like I've canceled myself out of Major League Baseball because people, I'll never probably coach in the big leagues ever again or even be involved in big leagues ever again because I've spoken out about it. But I knew that this would happen. But I wanted to do it anyway because one day we're going to die and have to go to heaven and answer to God and say, hey, you know, I did my best. And that's what I'm worried about. I'm not worried about anything else. So I want to make sure that I'm vocal, I'm honest, I'm truthful. And if I can help one person out of all of this, that's all I'm trying to do, just one person. And
Mm.
so it's if anybody else after that is icing on the cake. So thank you for what you do, by the way, Annie. I appreciate you being vocal as well. We need good, strong, moral people to keep speaking out and keep just call it out. Just call it out. I mean, people are afraid to call out,
Yeah.
and don't be speak righteous, be truthful, be honest, and call it out where it is. Because if we don't do that, then we're part of the problem if we don't do that, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're so right. Strong, courageous, and unafraid. And that shines through, at least on your X profile and in this conversation here. I'm so grateful for your time today. Thank you for your fearlessness and for sharing some of that with us. We really appreciate you, Jonathan, here in St. Louis. Of course, your kind words to Yachty. I always say that the number one thing sports teams or sports publications should do is leave a Cardinal off of any top 10 list, and your algorithm will go through the roof because St. Louis fans always show up. And you started talking about Yachty, and it hit my timeline, and we're grateful for
God,
that.
he's the best.
Yeah.
He is in my book, and I said it the other day on X. He's a top three catcher of all time, and the respect I have for that dude is off the charts. And so I loved competing against him. He was the best, and he taught me. He might know this, he might not, but he taught me personally. He taught me a ton about catching and being a leader and being a good game caller and competing from behind the plate just from playing against him. And um, he's he's an absolute stud, and I'm very thankful to have competed against him and for as long as I did. And I'm also thankful, by the way, to all the St. Louis fans out there that that came to the games and watched us compete. And thank you guys for being great fans and supporting your team there. I mean, it's you guys, in my opinion, you're one of the best fans. I never played for the Cardinals, but played against you guys a ton,
Yeah.
and one of the great fan bases in baseball.
Well, we're appreciative of that. Jonathan, I'm going to invite you to come back on the show again sometime in the future
I
here
would love
right
to.
now.
Hmm.
So thank you for being with us today and for sharing. I mean, it's a message, but it's also a witness, and we're grateful for it.
Thank you guys. Have a good one.
Yep, you as well. Thank you so much.